All right, it's the top of the hour. Welcome to everybody that's joined us for the IEEE VIS Town Hall. I'm Ross Majeski. I'm the co-chair of the Visualization Executive Committee in conjunction with Gotham Chowdhury. The Town Hall is designed to provide you updates on what the different organizational aspects of VIS are doing. And the primary sessions, this primary stuff in the Town Hall today is going to be led by the overall paper chairs. And then we have a special panel in a different room that we'll switch over to right after the town hall to talk about a survey that the VEC ran on hybrid viz, virtual viz, and things. We encourage everybody to switch over to that after we're done. We will work hard to keep on time. So with that, let me turn it over to the VSC co-chair, Mariah Meyer, to walk through the VSC items.
Thanks, Ross. Hi, everyone. My name is Mariah, and along with Petra Eisenberg, I co-chair the VSC, or the Visualization Steering Committee. Yesterday, Petra gave a brief overview of the different organizational structure behind the conference, the VSC, as well as the Visualization Executive Committee and the area Curation Committee. I encourage you to go back and watch the governance session if you have questions about how this community comes together and is organized. But here I'm just going to briefly tell you a little bit about what we've been up to this past year. So this is the committee that we've been the committee that's been working together for the past year. As I said, Petra and I have been the co-chairs, along with also on the committee is Jeff Hare, Kwan Lu Ma, Nicholas Elmquist, Vidya Settler, Jinwook So, Xiaoru Yan, and Anna Villanova. And next slide. For this coming year, Petra is rotating off, and our newest member is going to be Michael Settlemeyer, who is the newest member via elections, and Vidya and I will be co-chairs together. Okay, next slide. So what does the VSC do? Our main task in terms of the conference is to oversee the scientific content considerations for the conference and for the community. One of the big things that we do every year is to assign all the positions on the organizing committee for the content positions. This includes things like papers, posters, workshops, panels, awards, etc. And we work with the VEC on getting into place the rest of the organizing committee as well. We also work with paper chairs on changes to the call for papers and also longer term considerations for continually refining our reviewing practices. We then work with the area curation committee on refinements to the area model. Of course, also some work on longer term considerations along with the ACC and the VEC. Next slide, please. So a big thing I just want to stress is, together with the VEC, is doing the assignments for our organizing committee, which is really responsible for the whole way that the conference comes together and how we all get to network. We really, in putting together the committee every year, we really we strive for a balance of experience. We consider prior performance at the VIS conference on the organizing committee, as well as other conferences. And then, of course, also diversity considerations, gender, geographical, regional, and institutional. I really want to stress that the volunteer survey is super important for reassignment to new positions. So if you don't know what this is, check out this QR code. Every year we have a survey that goes out that asks people who want to volunteer and what they would be interested in doing. And we look through this when looking for moving new people into new positions. Also for people who are rotating off of their positions, we go to this survey to also see what else they might be interested in doing. So please fill it out. And if you are on the OC and you get rotated off, we wanted to stress that it's a complex web of considerations how this comes together. People who have people who have given their time and rotated off know that we really appreciate it. And if you didn't get rotated onto another position, don't worry, you're still in our sights, and we will keep you in mind for other positions in the future. Next slide, please. Okay, so what did we do this year? This QR code will take you to a link where you can find all the minutes from the meetings that we had this year. Next slide, please. Some of the things that we dealt with are these topics. We are now 5 years into the reorganization of this whole community. And so some of the work we've done this year is really looking at the leadership structure and the roles and trying to refine and streamline things based upon what's actually been working the last 5 years. And so we have some changes to the charter, some pretty major we have some changes to the charter that went in this year. Which you'll hear from the OPCs, the overall paper chairs here later, but we worked with them on thinking through some reviewing experiments that I think they're going to continue into next year. Work with streamlining the conference, trying to think about, which of our activities and venues are working and which ones aren't, and how can we continually refine the makeup of the conference. We have a new committee that we struck to revisit the role of workshops and pre-approval and the pre-approval process, to think a little bit more strategically about like what do we want at this point in the conference out of workshops and pre-approved events. So look for some maybe potential changes next year to that. We've been also working with open practice chairs to further some of the goals that they have towards open science considerations, and you'll hear from them in a few minutes here as well. We also worked quite closely with the paper chairs and the TBCG editor on some ethics violations that happened this year that we have helped facilitate and have now been popped up to the IEEE CS Society Ethics Board. And we are continuing discussions about reviewer fatigue and the overall health of our review system, and looking at things to consider to help maintain a high quality of reviewing in our community. Next slide. And then finally, briefly, some of the things that we know are on our docket for this year is working with the VEC to explore how we might streamline the conference. Is the conference really the size and the shape that makes sense for our community, and how might we think about refining it over the next couple of years? With the ACC, we're looking in more detail at this notion of hyper-prolific authorship, so people who, some members of our community who submit lots of papers each year, and what that might mean for our reviewing system. So we're looking to balance those considerations. We're also going to work on putting into place some additional checks for ethics, specifically related to conflicts of interest, which was the problem that we had this year. And then also some discussions around our best paper award system. Are we giving too few or too many? Differing opinions on that. So these are just some of the topics that we're going to talk about. If these are things that you're interested in, please feel free to always reach out to myself or other members of the VSC. Next slide. If you want to find out more about us, you can go on under Organization and History and click the link VIS Steering Committee, and you can find out more about what we do and also get a link to our meeting minutes. And I think that's everything I have. Thanks,
Great.
Ross.
Thanks, Mariah. And I serve as one of the co-chairs for the counterpart to the VSC, the Visualization Executive Committee, along with my co-chair, Gautam Chowdhury. The Visualization Executive Committee is charged with making sure conference operations are running. On this committee, we have myself, Gautam, Rita Borgo, Leilani Battle, Matt Bremer, Nargis Mayar, Liz Marai, Brian Suma, Anastasia Bezarianos, and Tatiana von Landesberger. I will be rotating off this year along with Liz. Rita will be joining us as our new VEC co-chair. Hendrik Strobel was newly elected to the VEC, and we'll have one more member to be appointed by the VSC. We are mainly the operational aspects of VIS. We solicit bids for future VIS conferences. We do a approval of pre-approved events. We work on hybrid concepts, plug for the panel after this. And we approve parts of the organizing committee. We did a lot this year, recent discussion and activity. We did a large update of OC invitations to include clear responsibility timelines. We ran a large hybrid survey along with VGTC. Please stay tuned for that panel. We worked with VSC to create an updated associated events and workshop. So a new committee for VIS 25 that'll serve as the workshop chairs for looking at combining some of the associated events and workshop tasks that are done. We also have worked to create more open data. So VIS attendance data is now online in the same location as the VEC meeting minutes. You can copy this link here, or you can find it off the VIS website. Next, VIS conferences. We're looking forward to having VIS in Vienna in 2025, Boston in 2026. 2027 is nearly finalized. We hope to announce it soon. And what we really need community help for is 2028. We have always a very limited number of bid sites. There is a form. You can consider submitting a bid for VIS. You can also visit the VIS website for bidding guidelines, as well as some testimonials from past general chairs. You can use this QR code to find the bid document. As always, you can, similar to the VIS steering committee, you can click on the VIS executive committee link and get to the VIS executive committee documents here. That includes our minutes as well as the open data we're providing for the VIS conference. The next organization that we'll talk about is IEEE VGTC. I'm not Bongshin Lee, but I'll be filling in for her as the time zone difference is pretty large this year. So this is the visualization and graphics technical community. It's made up, it's under the IEEE umbrella, and the goals are to support our members' professional development and advancement, help advance the state of the art in visualization, computer graphics, and foster interdisciplinary interaction. The VGTC provides support and oversight for IEEE VIS and VR conferences, primarily VIS, Pacific VIS, VR, and ISMAR. So the VGTC contains members from all of these different communities. They also run the awards program. You saw those being handed out on Tuesday. For the VIS side, we have the Dissertation Award, Significant New Researcher Award, Technical Achievement Award, Lifetime Achievement Award, Service Award, and the Academy Award. They also provide support for diversion and inclusion. They support our diversity and inclusivity scholarships. They help develop the code of conduct that we adhere to and provide diversity of accessibility guidelines. They also work heavily in improving the paper review process, spending funds to improve PCS, spending time to improve paper templates, and they support junior members of the community through the VIS Summer Camp. If you want more information on the summer camp, please follow the link in the slides here. But the mission of the VIS Summer Camp is to improve success and retention of academic VIS researchers while fostering a tighter sense of community. It's a very nice group, lots of ways to get involved. And this is a list of all the executive committee members. Bongshin Lee serves as the chair, and the vice chair is Victoria Tarante. There are new charter amendments to VGTC, including a representative from Pacific VIS is now promoted to conference from symposium, and there are 2 ethics and diversity chairs. Please do nominate for VGTC. We need to find a new member for the vice chair for the VGTC, the webmaster, and 1 member at large. Please direct any questions to the secretary or the VGTC chair. And for more information, please visit the VGTC website. And you can also join VGTC. It's free. Thank you to the VIS 24 Organizing Committee, student volunteers, the steering committee, and the executive committee, and the IEEE Computer Society staff. Next up, we're going to hear from Han-Wei Shen, given he's the editor-in-chief of IEEE Transactions on Visualization and Computer Graphics. Han-Wei.
All right. Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Han-Wei. So before I report a number, I want to tell everybody now we have 7 associate editor-in-chief. We have 3 AEIC associate-in-chief from VIS, 2 from VR, and then 2 from graphics. Now let's look at the slide. I want to point out that the number of submissions, not counting the special issues, increased dramatically. So actually I have a typo. If you only look at 2014, we had 391 submissions. But this year, up to only October, we already received 942. So I expect that by the end of the year, we're going to have 1,200. You can see that this is really like a, dramatic increase. And that's actually the reason I recruit additional AEIC. So now we have a 2-tier kind of assignment. Before, it was every paper was assigned by me to one of the associate editors. So now actually I will have all the AEIC look at the submissions, suggest desk reject, and also suggest AE to handle the paper, and then I will assign to the AE. So now, by presenting this number, I really want to ask everybody help. Please do consider review papers and also submit your papers in time, because actually it's a whole community's effort. Next, please. Next slide. So now here, I just want to show you some kind of decision numbers. So this is actually up to last month, September. So you can see that actually this is submission number. So most of the paper actually are submitted from graphics area. So graphics paper almost constitute half of the total submissions. And then next is VIS, and we still have a relatively much smaller submission from VR area. So this is actually why right now we have about 44 associate editors from computer graphics. We have 33 from visualization, and we have 24 from VR. This proportion pretty much kind of correlate to the number of submissions we have. And I have been always trying to increase the number of associate editors so that we can share the load. So if you are interested in being an associate editor, please send me email or send me email to all the AIC. All right, but then the rule for associate editor is, it has to be a, senior researcher, relatively senior. Before IEEE has a rule, only tenure professor can be considered as an AE or editors. Now they relax the rule. They say if you are senior assistant professors with outstanding record, that is okay. All right, but we typically look for people who are maybe 6-7 years after they get a PhD degree. So if you are still a junior, you can first of all volunteer to review, and then just let me know, and I will put it in our nomination list. Next, please. So in terms of the decision, all right. So let me see what it is. Maybe next slide. Sorry, next slide. So I want to mention the decision because it might be interesting in knowing the acceptance rate. So here, you look at this one. So this, this is actually not necessary. Every category is mutually exclusive because a paper, maybe they are minor revision, they become major revision, first of all, they are major revision, and then may become minor revision and accept. So here I only count number of decisions I have concurred every year. So, but overall, I think important number is that from all the decisions I made throughout the whole year for the past 9 months, we have about 18.5 acceptance rate. And then, if you added major revision and the minor revision, is about 42. So a lot of paper in the major or minor revision category, eventually they will be accepted as long as you make a satisfactory revision. Now, the rest is going to be either reject or resubmit as a view. If you look at the last column, this is pretty much similar to the overall distribution, even though the number of submissions in each category is different, but we are pretty consistent in terms of the acceptance rate and also the rate for major and minor revisions. Next slide. Next slide. That's about it. Thank you so much. Please feel free to email me if you have any question regarding TVCG. Thank you.
Ross, you're muted.
Yep, thanks. Next up is our open practice chairs. It'll be Laura Garrison.
Yeah, I'll try to make this really brief. So I've served on the Open Practices Committee alongside Cody Dunn and Michael Carell. And next slide. So this is the state of open practices for VIS 2024. I'm mostly just going to use this time to point you to the blog post that we wrote up that summarizes your self-reported practices that accepted authors entered into the camera ready submission forms. This post came out a little while ago, but it came out with all the hurricane situation. So people had bigger fish to fry. So we kept this quiet. But just to briefly summarize, preprints are common. It's about 67% of papers are going up onto mostly archive. We are currently still stuck in the process of having IEEE officially accept OSF as a preprint server. So this is something hopefully will be addressed next year. We also are seeing quite a bit of supplementary material being shared, which is great. That's something that we think is going really well. We can see from here, though, that pre-registration is extremely rare. We recognize that this isn't always relevant for people, but if it is, then please consider pre-registering your study. Next slide. So some of the changes that have happened this year, so you might have noticed some little badges that are linking to preprints and supplementary material repositories. So this was a really amazing effort from a really amazing and already overloaded team. So really huge thanks for that. Next year, we're thinking about having more formal badges in place with some sort of review system, but given that people are already sort of overloaded, we're not really sure. We've been discussing the possibility of awards to recognize and celebrate exemplary open practices, but again, this is an open discussion point, and as well looking at replication efforts. So these are all sort of on the agenda for discussion for next year. And that's it from our side. Please reach out if there's questions about any of this stuff.
And next, we'll have our updates from the overall paper chairs.
I think Tamara starts, right?
No. I'm last. You're first.
Next slide, please. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm completely wrong. That was the opening session. This is the town hall. Yes. So actually, thanks. So I will now talk about the reviewing process. So some of the stats you've heard before: 557 submitted, 129 conditionally accepted, 29 went to the TVCG fast track reject, which is where they get major revision status with TVCG. For another 236, they got what we call a standard reject, where it is possible to submit to TVCG with reviewer continuity. New this year was a strong reject category where it is not possible to resubmit to TVCG. And this is in part a response to what Hanwei noticed about the huge flood of papers to TVCG. And so we had these two different categories. Well, actually 3 different categories of reject. 9 were just rejected. What I'm going to focus on more here is the round 2 results, where there was 124 finally accepted and then 5 in the second round. And we did have a blog post where we discussed this in detail, but I think it's important enough that we want to discuss that a bit here in the town hall. Next slide, please. So we, and that's just a pointer to that blog post, which came out a few months ago. So there were some surprises in the second round results. One less surprising, the reviewer requirements to frame the novelty were not judged to be adequately addressed. This is a relatively, it's not a shocking thing to happen in the second round. The conditional accept really does have teeth. The reviewers do look carefully and closely, and this was one where they felt that it did not come up to snuff. A bit more surprising was one where there was a full page length over length, really just utterly violating the length restrictions. The more concerning one was 3 papers where there was a severe conflict of interest violation by a reviewer. This was absolutely not the fault of the authors, but it is not the case that it should happen that a primary would be the past supervisee of a senior author. This was not discovered until the very 11th hour, less than 48 hours before it was scheduled to send out the final decisions. Now, as you hopefully should all know, a supervisor-supervisee relationship is a permanent conflict of interest for your entire life in both directions. All instructions make this point very clear. This was really unprecedented, and so we struggled a lot with how to handle this. In the end, we decided that we simply could not go forward with the review process as originally planned because the integrity really was irrevocably compromised. The issue is that the primary is so involved in both writing the meta review and shaping the discussions around a paper that we felt it would not be fair to the review process if we continued once we discovered this serious problem. We developed overnight, literally, a ultra fast track path to TVCG to try to mitigate the impact of this on the authors who had done nothing wrong. There is now an ethics process a violation investigation underway on both the IEEE side and the VGTC side. So next slide, please. The deeper question is, oh, wait, that's not quite the slide we were looking for. That is. So our model has had a very trust-oriented approach of assuming that everyone is acting in good faith. We do have some automatic support from PCS for auto-detecting conflicts of interests, just from any recent collaboration that was submitted to PCS. Reviewers can override that. Sometimes it gets it wrong. Sometimes some things are missing, and reviewers do need to also self-declare. And our existing mechanisms are really well suited for handling people acting in good faith. If there are mistakes, there's definitely mechanisms to correct that, and it has served us well for the past many, many years. Now, there are other communities that are huge, right? AAAI, NeurIPS, they have 10,000 papers. They have a really different model where they're assuming adversarial bad actors. They use automatic inference of everything. There is no human in the loop intervention allowed. And so both supervisor-supervisee relationships and all recent collaborations are just inferred by crunching through the entire DBLP graph. We've checked. That's not possible for us to do in PCS before March of 2025 because they're doing a big infrastructure overhaul this year. So the obvious question comes, have we grown too large to stay with assuming everyone is basically acting in good faith? Because what we found today is our field is now big enough that we can't just count on paper shares. Many of us had eyes on this, but we have not memorized everybody's academic lineage in the way that maybe in the old days we might just know that. Or are we still small enough that we should stay the course and continue with relatively minor improvements and maybe not overreact to a single incident? We are still an order of magnitude smaller than these very large AI machine learning conferences. So that's not a thing we have answers for at this moment. We think it's an interesting question for the community to consider, and it's a big picture question. So that's just something we wanted to get on everyone's radar today. Over to you, Holger.
All right, thanks, Tamara. The statements I have to make are probably a little bit smaller. Next slide, please. As you know, some of our rejected VIS papers have the opportunity to be resubmitted directly to TVCG with the request of review continuity, either as fast tracks or as a regular rejection with the option to resubmit as new. What is important to say is that these resubmissions are not a guarantee of acceptance after another round. So if you have a TVCG fast track, you are not guaranteed to get finally accepted. Rejections and even desk rejections are possible. And the reasons for this are very easy. TVCG makes completely independent decisions of us, the VIS community. This is just the statement. And nevertheless, there is a high degree of consistency. And the reason for this is, so of course, review continuity. Review continuity is something really, really cool and useful because it makes the reviews more deterministic. The authors can better address the reviewers' concerns, and it uses the workload of the whole community. However, review continuity is only possible if the reviewers agree to review a paper. And here we see problems. Han Wei reported us that currently there are many declines of review continuity requests. And that's why our statement our statement is please, if you're asked to do review continuity reviews, please say yes whenever it's possible for you. Of course, there might be good reasons to decline, but whenever it's possible, please go for review continuity. It's good and important for the whole community. Thanks. Next slide. And Niklas.
All right, so I'm here to talk about some of the changes for VIS 2025, because as you heard, there were some reviewing changes for this year, and we have additional ones coming up for next year. So next slide, please. We will have to continue some of this discussion in Discord. I encourage everyone to speak out and tell us what you think about these. These three suggestions are all things that we're leaving to the community to discuss. And if we get enough support, we might ask for changes from the steering committee. The first proposal is simply to extend the deadline for supplemental material with 1 week. And the idea is you submit everything except the supplemental material on the regular deadline, March 31st. And then we give you an additional week to submit a video, any data sets or additional research materials a week later. And of course, bad side is that the deadline now gets pushed past March 31st. But if you really need to finish by March 31st, of course, you can submit everything by that date. Next slide. The next proposal is slightly more experimental. We're figuring out what the IEEE says about this, but the idea here is to give authors the option to have anonymous reviews published for accepted papers in the digital library. And the goal is to improve the transparency and then change the way we do reviewing in the IEEE VIS community so that we can provide future resources, people understand more of the process of papers being accepted, and hopefully also increasing the review quality. Of course, there are some privacy concerns. There might be reduced candor where reviewers are not at liberty to be as free as they otherwise would be. And of course, reviewer might need there will be some more workload to create reviews that are actually publishable. Next slide, please. And that's our third and final proposal, is to combat reviewer fatigue and to increase the bench of reviewers. We are proposing a student reviewer program where, in addition to the 3 reviews, a primary, a secondary, and an external reviewer that we are currently continuing for next year, the primary reviewer has the option to include a dedicated student reviewer. So there would be 4 reviewers in total. This student reviewer would be mostly advisory. It would be a PhD student, perhaps a relatively junior one, who is not ready to be a reviewer on their own right, but can help provide feedback, a 4th pair of eyes, and also help them become better reviewers for when it's their time to take on this mantle in the future. There also would be a way for supervisors to explicitly give credit to reviewers for their own students as reviewers, instead of, which happens sometimes and something that we frown upon, having your students write reviews for the faculty members. All right, so we don't have much time, I think. Maybe next slide. This is where the time where we were hoping to get some questions and answers. I think the slide is shut, the stream will shut down soon. But we're open to discussions.
And we also need to ask people to go to the panel that's being run on hybrid viz. Maybe what I can recommend is for questions, we could create a Discord town hall channel and people could then put those in and we can answer asynchronously through the rest of the conference, just in the interest of time. Okay. Thank you. If you're interested in discussing hybrid viz, Matt Bremer and Nargis Mayar have done a great job building a survey. Please quickly transition to Bayshore. I can't read my slides. Bayshore VII and watch their stuff there. Thank you all for participating in the town hall. I will work on getting a Discord channel about town hall so people can ask questions asynchronously. Apologies for the compressed time.